I'm here representing Commerce Lexington. We are the Chamber of Commerce. We work here in Lexington and within the region. So I'm one of a staff of 20 plus individuals that are here working on a mission to be the economic change driver for Lexington and our region. And so within that, within Commerce Lexington, we do economic development work for Lexington, and we also coordinate and facilitate that work with our partners in economic development in the 9-county region. We also do public policy, which is my day job primarily, beyond working on this regional competitiveness plan effort. We do workforce development, we do community and minority to business development, we work with our entrepreneur and our startup community. We're partners with tourism in trying to promote events and conventions and visitors coming into Lexington. So we really do a lot of different things to promote economic development, job creation, talent attraction here in Lexington and the region. So we've got about 2,000 members now across a variety of different sectors here in the community, and we can talk more about that. But what Natalie and Brittany had asked me to talk to you all about today is an effort that's really, it's been decades in the making. And it is our effort to really be intentional around regional collaboration for economic development, for policy, and for talent attraction at a level that we've never done it before. I think you all know this. I mean, the pandemic came and change has accelerated. Whether it's workforce, whether it's what's happening out in the economy, things are just happening a lot faster. And so, you know, we have had leadership in place, business leaders, education leaders, government leaders that felt this change coming even before the pandemic. And they really have been talking about the same issues, the same challenges with job creation and talent attraction. And the timing was right to convene everyone to say, okay, let's reset. We're post-pandemic. What do we need to do to make this region a better place to live and work? Where are we at? Let's just benchmark it. And then where do we need to go? And where does collaboration make sense? And I think one of the strengths of Commerce Lexington and the Chamber is we are natural conveners. We don't have all the answers, but we can help identify the right people within the community that can come around the table to talk about issues and problems, and let's just talk about solutions, because everybody has collective intelligence to bring to certain issues, and we want to leverage that, and that's a natural role for us to play. So I say all that frame up to say we are working on something that has a very sexy name, the Regional Competitiveness Plan. And just to give you all, and this will tie all this together very briefly, regionalism is not a new thing. We have been working regionally since the days of Toyota in the 80s. They were really the genesis of sort of breaking down these county-specific barriers. So for a number of years, we have worked on job creation with economic development professionals in the 9-county region, public policy. We've worked with Mary Quinn and her partners in tourism, and then also in leadership development. Some of you all may have gone through Commerce Lexington's leadership programs or the leadership programs in Central Kentucky that are meant to really educate us all about the community and how we can be better partners together. So this is our 9-county region, and this is the footprint that we use for job creation and economic development. And so just wanted you all to see when we say the region, that's what we're talking about. So when you say this word competitiveness, a lot of times it's like, well, what does that even mean? So from the purposes of economic development work with what we do, this is the way that we look at the components of competitiveness or economic development work. You've got to be, it's not just like land for businesses today. It's all of these things working in concert together. So you've got to have strategies around workforce. You've got to be thinking about the business climate you have here. You've got to be thinking about innovation and what Nick's team is doing and how we're growing that ecosystem. And then infrastructure is really important. And I would add to the infrastructure list housing availability and affordability being really critical infrastructure in today's world. So I frame that up to say, when you look at the wheel, there are a lot of different data points that when companies and even people are looking at our community, our region, they are assessing it based on those categories. And so we had a consultant, Ted Abernathy with Economic Leadership out of North Carolina. He's worked in Kentucky before, worked in 26 different states, is really seen as a leader in economic development and workforce development. And we had him come in about 3 years ago and lead a group of regional leaders through a process to really assess where we were as a region. We had representatives from all 9 counties, business, education, agriculture, tourism, at the table, government leaders, to just say, okay, let's find out where we are, and then let's figure out what our challenges are and what are our opportunities and what do we think we want to do as a unit together. And so one of the things that he showed us based on that competitiveness wheel was where we stack up against, at that time, some of our competitor cities. You know, the places that we're losing people to and that we're losing jobs to. And so the big takeaway from this is Lexington's in the middle of the pack. And you can see number 2, quality of place. We are right behind Nashville. That's a huge opportunity. But the momentum piece, we were lagging behind these other communities. So what we dug in through that process was to figure out what's happening with the momentum in this community. Why do we not have that energy behind us? And so we did a process over a year. We had 4 sessions with Ted Abernathy and his team to really dive into the data. We also hosted workshops with stakeholders in the region. We contracted with Development Counselors International out of New York to really dive more into the workforce strategy and how we're being viewed by external audiences, talent attraction in cities where we know we're losing people to. So the key takeaway of this slide is it wasn't just Commerce Lexington making this decision. There were a lot of regional leaders and a lot of data from external audiences that went into crafting this strategy. So some of the assessment, the data backed this up, the feedback from our internal stakeholders, these were some of the challenges that the Lexington and the region faced. And these were some of our strengths. So I don't think these things will be a surprise to many of you here in the room. And I won't read through all those, but just land availability is not just a Lexington issue, it's a regional issue. What we're doing for housing, not just a Lexington issue, it's a regional issue. And some of the strengths, the things that we all know are positives, these were things that what we found is external audiences, Mary Quinn said this earlier, they just don't know what we have to offer here. They don't know the jobs, they don't know the quality of place, and we've really got to dive into enhancing our marketing. And this slide shows it. This was some of the feedback that when we did some surveys of external audiences in 4 of the cities that we're losing young professionals to, that's Cincinnati, Nashville, Indianapolis, and Chicago. What's the key word that you see on the screen? It's unknown. So it's not necessarily anything bad. They just don't know who we are or what we have to offer. So from all of this data gathering, all of these conversations, the regional leaders came together and said, you know, there were really 2 key data points where we were behind the national average as a region. And that was related to economic development. We were not creating enough jobs. The wages were about $10,000 below the national average. The amount of things that we were making in the region, just below the national average. So we said over the next 5 years, we're going to implement some strategies to try to at least get the region to the national average in job creation, raise the wages that people are making, and try to produce more out of this region. And we're going to track that and monitor it and see how we're doing. The second point was, when you look at regional labor force, and that's folks that are 25 to 55, we were barely growing. I mean, 600 people a year, retaining those folks in that age group. And that was really alarming, knowing that we're sitting on the University of Kentucky's campus, and we've got 20,000 graduates coming out of UK and the 9 colleges and universities that are in this region. So it's like we have got to put intentionality around retaining more of those young people and trying to attract people back to the region to provide the workforce that our employers need to grow. And then just being intentional about when we're advocating in Frankfurt or in Washington to really have priorities that support the things that we know that we need in this region to be more competitive. So these were the 7 action items, and I won't go through those on this page, but you can see them. And the key takeaway from this slide is the regional leaders said, we don't want some kind of strategic plan where you've got 25 action items. It's this huge document. Nobody's going to do anything with it because no one takes ownership of any of these action items. They said very clearly, we want to have a handful of things that we can work on together and we can see some initial success to show that this level of regionalism works. And so these are the 7 items that the regional leaders task us to work on as a unit. And Commerce Lexington is really that organizational backbone that's keeping us accountable, that's tracking progress. I call us the border collie of the initiative. I don't know if you are familiar with those dogs, but my grandfather had those growing up, and they are like the herders. You know, they're just kind of moving the pack in the right direction. So we're the border collies of these 7 action items to make sure that we're moving in the right direction and adjusting if we need to. So this is the way internally we break these things down into economic development, workforce and talent, and policy. And so the very first thing that we had to do when we came together was actually create a regional brand. And I know this may not seem like much, but this was like a year-long process of trying to figure out, what do we call ourselves? Are we Central Kentucky? Are we the Bluegrass region? Are we Lexington? Like what is it that we can all start saying to identify us as a regional unit? And that was one of the most challenging things to do, not necessarily for Lexington, but when we're trying to engage regional partners in this conversation, to lean into Lexington was really a huge mindset shift. And to think that branding and marketing, to Mary Quinn's point, we are actually trying to talk to external audiences, not necessarily internal. So they don't care about county lines. We just have to give them a digital entry point into this community. And so after a lot of conversations, a lot of data points, the consensus from the consulting firm was you need to lean in to Lex, to LEX. You've got airport call letters that other cities don't have. You've got a tourism community that's built the Visit Lex brand over a number of years. And Lexington is your largest city. It's the 2nd largest MSA. You've got to lean into that so people on the outside know where you are on a map. So this is the brand. So when you see this is the regional plan, policy, economic development. This is the umbrella from which it falls under. So very quickly on the talent strategy component, these are the things that we're focused on: deliverables, tactical items. We are creating a new talent attraction website. And you can go on your phone right now and look it up. It's in the soft launch phase, www.lookatlex.com. It is a place for live, work, play information to be in one space for people to find. 70% of people are looking online for resources when they're considering relocations. And it's not just jobs that people care about. They want to know about quality of place, but you've got to have a resource for them to find it in one easy location. And that's what the website will do. It's going to officially launch at the end of September. And in conjunction with that, we are launching for the first time ever a new talent-focused digital and social media campaign to target certain alumni. The first phase is alumni of our colleges and universities and our visitors, to drive them back to the website. And we're going to be hosting workshops to help people in the region become aware of how to use those tools. And then we're going to continue to work with our colleges and universities on how to retain students and connect them more with businesses. So quickly, with economic development, and we can talk more about this in the Q&A, we have very specific strategic targets. The City of Lexington recently updated their economic plan and refreshed what are the targets that work for this community and work best for the region. And so within those, it's things that you know about in terms of advanced manufacturing, life sciences and healthcare, technology, business and professional services, headquarter companies. These are all clusters that we have here that we know we need to lean into and try to grow. And so the strategy around this is really to try to elevate our engagement, our outreach to site selectors. And those are basically the realtors or the agents, so to speak, for businesses. They have kind of a go-between, a middleman that's out there searching for areas for them to locate or expand to, and you have to have relationships with those individuals. They are the gatekeeper to key projects. So our goal as a team is to develop those relationships, let them know what's going on here in the region, and we do that by attending trade shows, conferences. We're out there promoting Lexington and the region to people that are interested in helping businesses locate. The other thing on the policy advocacy front, and I'll do this quickly, our goal is to, in order to have good economic development, you've got to have the right policies in place. So we're in Frankfort advocating for funding to help support site development, land development for jobs, help support for the talent attraction marketing, looking for solutions to housing affordability to help that within our community. And Brittany already mentioned this, but the Regional Summit is really our annual convening, and that's on November the 20th. I hope you all will come. We provide thought leadership around each of these issue areas and then provide updates on the plan. It's really the best time to come and get a comprehensive overview of where this is headed and to be part of those conversations. This just shows you some of the projects that have developed in the region related to the product development funding. It's really accelerated getting more business sites online, not just in Lexington, but in the region. And then the funding breakdown, the final thing I'll say is that this effort is supported both from business and from government leaders. We've got over $1 million in private sector funding that are supporting these efforts. And for the first time ever, we have regional governments that are investing in a regional economic development strategy and helping make this possible. You can see those folks listed. And then the final thing I'll say is, why should we collaborate regionally? It's because there's power in numbers. You know, to be on the map and to compete against the Nashvilles or the Cincinnatis or even Louisville, we have to leverage all the assets, not just of our urban core, but also of our rural partners. They have sites and land that we're just not going to have here in Fayette County. But we also have assets with our connection to the university, research and development, the business and professional services side, where people want to be here in Fayette County. So we each have unique assets, but we are better if we market that as a package. And so that's what we've been saying, that the theme of this, the theme of regional collaboration, the theme of our economic development strategy is we are better together. And so that's internal partners here in the community, and it's also with our regional partners as well. Thank you guys. Sorry, I went over a little bit.